Inhale, folks. I'm about to make you really uncomfortable.
You are Locked On Huskers, your daily podcast on the Nebraska Cornhuskers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, gang, DP here. 937 Ticket in Lincoln, America. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate you hanging out with us. I want to thank the folks from FanDuel for what they do in FanDuel Sportsbook, the number one sportsbook in America, official sportsbook of the National Basketball Association. Make every moment more with FanDuel. Go to FanDuel.com/LockedOn for more details. Signs of a great thing is its comfort in being uncomfortable. That's how you know a thing is truly, legitimately great. Beyond basic outside, external optics. It's when you get to the uncomfortable part and how you handle it that's important. So for Nebraska football, they're in a very interesting space that they paid a coach 8 years, between $72 and $74 million, and given time for that coach to develop, form, and make this program the greatest version of itself that's possible. $74 million. And this is from a program that just recently paid an exit $16 to $18 million to Scott Frost. So between Matt Rule and Scott Frost, currently forward, $90 million? $90 million. Now, I say all that to say this. If the priority for Nebraska football is to win and then create the best student-athlete experience for its student-athletes, for the young people who actually shed blood, injure their bodies, go through emotional and psychological trauma, go through the stress, go through the sacrifices, go through choosing Nebraska over all and every, that then Nebraska ideally should take care of them first. Take care of the student athlete first, because the other people involved are paid professional grown-ups. Paid professional grown-ups. We're talking about young people who, through their families and through recruiting, commit themselves at sometime age 16, sometimes 17, sometimes 18, maybe 19. Commit themselves to grown-ups, paid professionals, who are the top salespeople top recruiters. No, top coaches in the country. So ultimately, we should root for the young people to be treated and to achieve and get the most from their time and their commitment to the University of Nebraska. Now, nobody is going to say that it's a miserable experience for you to be a member of the Nebraska football program. What I'm talking about is your ability to do more for people simply because you can and because it's the right thing to do, even if it should be the priority and focus one, it may not actually be priority and focus one. Winning and the student-athlete experience should be pretty high on the pyramid of why Nebraska football matters. Right next, winning. Winning. And because of winning, there are perks and benefits. But when you're not winning and you're still dealing with perks and benefits, then the people who should be achieving and reaping the benefits of those perks are the young people, the student athletes, the ones who go and put their spines on the line, those that go and rattle their brains, those that go and break bones and tear ligaments and ruin cartilage, and like those folks. Not the folks who've already lived that life and then who are standing on the sideline assessing the situation and trying to lead them. Yes, they're being coached, and those coaches deserve whatever money they can get. But what I would say is that if the Nebraska football program nets $62 million, $62 million at the end of expenses, and we're not even talking about seat licensing, money that never hits the football bottom line. It's removed and it's put in another part of the UNL budget. 26 million, just as a number we can put out there. But 62 million, if you're one of the top 10 programs financially in the country, and you're one of less than 10 who don't carry debt in its athletic department, all while just having distributed and released $16 million to have somebody not coach, because that number should have been higher than the 62. Because if you don't throw away that money's still in the program. And that wasn't the only coach where money was thrown away, because you have to remember, you had to pay off a whole staff of coaches. Again. And the 62 million, while it is the number currently, but it's not the only number that has existed in Nebraska football for the past 10 years when it comes to profit in the football program. And yes, football program pays for its own and it pays for others. And then it actually distributes money back to the university for other things. But the moment you do that means you're taking away money that could have been used on the people who actually generated the profit in the first place. Like if you're a football player and you don't have everything you need, and I'm not saying football players don't have everything they need, but if you had $16 million to throw away, what could you have done with that $16 million for the 85 kids on scholarship and the other 65 or so that aren't? There are programs around the country where they have made a point to take care of the walk-ons. And for the University of Nebraska, most of the walk-ons are Nebraska kids. So if you're really about Nebraska, wouldn't you be taking care of the kids from Nebraska who are coming out of pocket to play football for the university that they grew up loving, adoring, and wanting to be a part of? I told you, some folks are going to be uncomfortable with the conversation, but don't be mad at the conversation. Be mad at how you think about the conversation. The topic is, what more can the University of Nebraska do for their football players and for their student athletes in general? We'll go through some more of those numbers. Today is about numbers. And then ponder it. And you can disagree with me, and I'm fine with that. But my thought is, I'm going to be on the hill that fights for the young people. That's the coach in me. More Locked On Huskers. Welcome back, DP here, Locked On Huskers. Again, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch and listen each and every single day. One of your second watch and listens should be Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown. Ooh-wee. It's Sweet 16 for both boys and girls, for both men and women in the programs. And then as you head through to next week towards the Final Four, get your insight, get your intelligence from Locked On College Basketball Bracket Breakdown. It will help you make informed decisions on how you pick out your brackets, whatever way you want to do it. There's more information. They're going to provide it for you. You can find it on YouTube or however you consume your podcast. We're talking numbers, and recent report speculated that Nebraska ended up with $62 million bottom line. which football program, after expenses. And before you get yourself in a bunch, let me say this. You can go and online, the University of Nebraska budget exists. And the journalist in me says, go look at these numbers, and the numbers are fascinating. But when NIL was brought into this thing, then the thought is that, well, student athletes are now being paid. Well, they should. If you're generating millions of dollars in profit, and you're not the person out there bleeding, sweating, breaking bones, and getting concussed, then you might want to consider taking care of the people who do. And NIL at the University of Nebraska, I would say that there was a report that there was 120 or so student athletes in Nebraska who were receiving NIL money. Now, the range in that is from $100 to, whatever that maximum number is that folks are getting. And that's a whole nother conversation for a whole nother podcast. But the bulk of those, 3 out of every 4, are football players. And most of those football players aren't making 6 figures in NIL money. Now, there's a thing called an Alston rule that the NCAA put into effect in 2021, where each scholarship athlete at the University of Nebraska, there are 752 student athletes at the University of Nebraska under scholarship. All of them used to receive just under $4,000 a year cash, distributed to them by the university through an account. And because of situation circumstance, that number was bumped up to just under $6,000 in 2022. And now that number is, based on a conversation that Trev Alberts was quoted in, that number is now $10,000 per student athlete under scholarship at the University of Nebraska, receives $10,000 in cash distributed over the course of the year. Now, that number, quick math tells me that's $7.5 million in cash being distributed to student athletes at the University of Nebraska. And that's a wonderful thing. It's a beautiful thing. So imagine that if you're on the bowling team, you're on the swimming team, you're on the track team, you're on the soccer team, whatever it is, whatever that may be, you are receiving $10,000 cash over the course of your year to help you with other expenses and such. And there are expenses that are put into this thing: flights from home, back to school, holiday from school, from Lincoln back home, and and other expenses along the way. And there are trades that can be done. I believe that there are a couple of dozen student athletes who receive car deals where they're not getting ownership of the car, but they're leasing the car without pay throughout the course of this thing. Now, student athletes must do something for NIL. You can't just receive money. You have to do something specifically to be paid for, which is easy to do for all the things that are asked of student athletes, right? Whether it's go to somebody's house, whether it's shoot a PSA, whether it's to wear this outfit, whether it's to go to this event, sign autographs for this thing, take pictures at this thing, meet and greets, etc. All those things fall under this window. But I ask, if you have $16 million to burn, wouldn't that $16 million have gone much farther, much deeper, if that money had been handled properly and was distributed to the student athletes rather than throwing it out the window as somebody left the building who was not successful at doing their job? And I'm only asking that so that we learn from the mistakes. That's why you fail at something. Not just to fail, but to learn, okay, I'm never doing that again. I'm never doing that again. And if you're somebody that throws money at the University of Nebraska in support, what you would want, I would hope, is that it's more to prevent the mistakes rather than to cover the mistake. That it's proactive and it's good, because I can tell you that for all the other sports, if Nebraska football is going to help fund and facilitate greatness in those programs, that an additional $10,000 cash, which we now know is not faithful to the program, it's not faithful to the bottom line, helps you recruit better at those other sports, because not everybody's doing that. And you can be a settler or a pioneer, but Nebraska has every resource to be a pioneer in this thing, to be out front in, we're going to take better care of our student athletes. We're going to take better care of our money. We're going to take better care of what we're going to be more responsible in what we ask our fans to support. Because if you're raising ticket prices and the money is going to end up helping some kid pay his electric bill, or his family to buy groceries, or his mother to be able to come and see him play, I would think that more fans would be into that rather than paying for a mistake or paying for a failed experiment. Now, I could be wrong, and you feel free. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm okay with that. This is just a discussion. It's just food for thought and things to ponder. But imagine Nebraska athletics if some of that money was set aside, an additional amount of money, not because you have to, not because the Supreme Court said you have to do it, not because the Big Ten says you have to do it, but simply because it's who you are, and it's a statement that it's the right thing to do for your student athletes, the people that help you generate this money and the people that help you draw interest in your university and the good things that are going on there. Wouldn't it be better to be proactive and say, we're going to do more for our student athletes than anybody else? I know Trev Albert says Nebraska's never going to be first, but it's not going to be last either. Sometimes, for the sake of good, and for the people that you are tasked to care about more than anything else, because you're supposed to care more about the student athletes than you do the money. The money is a perk and a benefit because you're taking care of student athletes. But imagine how much better you would take care of them if you took some of that money and put it back in the young people that have been put under your watch and under your charge. That's just me. It's just a thought. We'll close out Locked On Huskers this edition when we come back. Hey, gang, thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch each and every single day. Thank you for going on this mental roller coaster with me, this emotional roller coaster with me. Because however you feel about it, I'm okay with how you feel about it. I'm just having the discussion out loud. Like as the great David Locke of Locked On used to say, I'm just clearing the noggin. And these are things that are in my head. And what I would love as a coach and as a former athlete is that we get on the same page. Like as a coach, I'm entitled as a professional to get mine, but it also would benefit me and behoove me to take care of the people under my watch. I want to thank the folks from FanDuel. Again, we greatly appreciate them for what they do. However you process, however you enjoy sports, FanDuel.com has a way for you to do it. Now, download the app. It's safe, it's secure, it's easy to use. The payoff is quick and easy, all of those things. But for more details, go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. All that you need to know when it comes to the NBA, March Madness, whatever it is you want to put your interest into. I'll close with this because the numbers are remarkable. A lot of the NIL at Nebraska has been focused purely on football and volleyball. Now, there's been recent movement in that other programs are going to be included. And that's good. Bravo. But when we know the numbers, and the only excuse that any university, any program, any athletic director can say, look, we don't want to do this thing that would be good for our student athletes, is because we don't have the money for it. We just don't have the money. But once you've removed that last part of that to say, well, you do have the money, you can literally do every good that you want to do for your student athletes that you can possibly think of and dream of, because you have the support, you have the resources, and you have the bottom line to do so. Then the question becomes, do you have the heart? Do you have the character? Do you have the integrity to do something that's a little uncomfortable, but absolutely and 100% good for the people that you say you're here to care about. I don't have that sort of skin in the game. I'm really good at spending other people's money. I'm really good at it. So I say that some of that is just me thinking of the young people. But for the grown-ups, I'll ask you this. Whatever way you can, would it be a bad thing for you to do more for your student athletes simply because you can? Because you can. Thank you for making Locked On Huskers your first watch. Listen each and every single day. Greatly appreciate it. Your second watch and listen should be Locked On College Basketball. Andy and Isaac take you through. They'll get you through, get you all the information, some great analysis, some great breakdowns of what's going on in March Madness and in the tournament. Find them on YouTube or however else you consume your podcast each and every single day. We'll close with the 3 words that mean so much, and they have to have value when you say them. Remember why you say them. Go Big Red.